Good morning and welcome back to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. Today's topic is going to be belief. And before we get started, let's just take a couple minutes to get settled in. Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it, and imagine all that oxygen just enlivening all your cells and coursing through your body. And exhale gently and relax. And now let's take another deep breath in through our nose. Hold it. Feel that vitality just rushing through your body all the way out to your fingers and the tips of your toes. And exhale and relax. And now let's just gently place our palms together and softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the tingling, feel the touch and the deliciousness of being here right now in the physical. Welcome. So, belief. Um, this is a really interesting time that we're all experiencing, and it's giving us an opportunity to revisit so much of the structure of our reality that we've always just assumed. So, for instance, the day to day, like the imagine, who would have imagined? Well, I guess some people would have, but who would have imagined that we would be in these circumstances that we're in, and uh, the the change and the radical shift of circumstance prompts a reassessment, reevaluation of our values, our priorities, our lifestyle, our purpose. Many people have been thrown into questioning, which is a really, really powerful moment in time. And I have the privilege of doing a podcast with three other wonderful ladies. And the podcast, it's actually a broadcast here on Enlightened World Network. It's called The Broader Edge, and we air it every other Thursday, and we aired it last night. It airs at 5 p.m. So if you're wanting some stimulating conversation, check it out here on Enlightened World Network. The topic was liminal space, and liminal space is the transitional space in times of change from one ending to a new beginning. And sometimes it's cataclysmic and sometimes it's um, celebratory, but change brings with it a challenge of identity, and we're all addressing that right now. So check out the broadcast from the Broader Edge here on Enlightened World Network about liminal space. It's awesome. But besides that, what I'm thinking is up for so many of us is looking at our beliefs, although maybe not consciously. And I think we tend to interact with our beliefs as if they are truth. And I want to challenge that, because in challenging that and in questioning our beliefs, questioning the assumptions that we make, we enable ourselves to have a greater potential for change and transformation individually and culturally. So, good morning, Dido and Sue. I'm so glad to have you here with me. Thank you so much for your support and for being here. Um, so, this idea of beliefs, oftentimes we don't even recognize them. They're so much part of our worldview that they're invisible to us. And I here's an example. So years ago, I learned how to do muscle testing, and that, if you're not familiar with it, is a way to communicate with the other than conscious intelligence of the body, and also to get indicators of strength and weakness with substances that strengthen us or weaken us, etc. But I use it in my practice, in my coaching practice, to be able to get answers, yes and no answers, about where to be probing in the course of our work together with my clients. Good morning, Becky Lefave. I hope I said that right. Good morning, welcome. Glad you're here. We're talking about beliefs. So Dido posted the link to the Broader Edge broadcast in the chat. So if you want to check it out, thank you for that, Dido. That makes life so much easier for everybody. Okay. So years ago, I learned muscle testing, and the way that it works is by, for me anyway, the way that I'm not actually testing muscle strength, I'm testing to get yes and no answers. So my father was a veterinarian who believed himself to be steeped in science, and my belief about science is that it is, or my understanding about science is that it is an area of inquiry, that it's not hard and fast, that it is evolving inquiry. Anyway, so here I am showing my father by muscle testing his arms, asking him his body questions. And what happens is, when at least the way that I work with it, I set up a signal system to say, what does a yes look like? So I can muscle test myself, but when I muscle test others, I use their arms, and I'll show you, here's how I muscle test myself. What's a yes? And I'm pressing down on my finger, and then when I ask what's a no, the finger goes right down. So other people do it this way. What's a yes? What's a no? And there are all different ways to do this. Some people do it with an arm outstretched and put a lot of pressure on the arm to see what a yes or a no is. But anyway, it's a really, really fascinating, kind of magical, incongruent with our traditional understanding about how things work. But it's a really, really fascinating technique. Anyway, so I was showing my dad muscle testing, and I asked his body, what's a yes, what's a no? And he literally pulled his arms away from me, and he said, you can't tell me that you're able to talk to my body. And I said, you just experienced it. Are you telling me that you would rather deny your actual experience because it challenges your belief about how things are? And he said yes. He said yes, right in the face of actual proof that this thing was legitimate, that I was able to communicate with him. Right in the face of his own experience, he said he had more conviction about his belief than about the truth. So this was a fascinating and very illuminating experience for me, to see that here a very intelligent person who considered themselves science-based was able to completely deny the possibility, even, let alone the veracity, of something that didn't align with his worldview. So I'm going to take a second to say hello to Becky. Becky, I said your name right. Thank you. And good morning, Jennifer. Welcome. I'm really glad you're here too. So for this conversation about belief. So back to this idea of belief and worldview, and how it becomes something that we, first of all, may not even be conscious of because it's so ingrained in who we are. And secondly, that we can become so identified with our beliefs and so immersed in a worldview that anything that challenges it or threatens it, we dismiss. And here's another wonderful example. I found this really fascinating because we all have our beliefs, right? And I know that in this moment it's so important to be really looking at what the information that we're being fed, whether it's through traditional media or things that we come across online. It's really important to be in inquiry rather than in fixed determination, because there are issues that are going to be, that are, and that are going to continue to be confronting us, that we really need to be able to be live enough, to be flexible enough, to be uh, responsive enough to respond to intelligently. So, and I believe that that means that it's a I believe that it's a good thing to be questioning in order to be become truly responsive. So here's another example of belief. I actually had a friend who is rather adventurous in entertaining new vantage points, new perspectives. And at one point, she started talking to me about the Earth being flat. And apparently, there are lots and lots of people, growing numbers of people, that believe the Earth is flat. And initially, when she was saying this, I was like, okay, that's too much. I have gone many places with you in your explorations of possibility here and of different perspectives. And she immerses herself. You know, she goes into this perspective and then she immerses herself, and then sometimes she moves out of that perspective. Sometimes it gets incorporated in her life view. But at this one particular point, she was talking about the Earth being flat, and I found myself reacting like, okay, this is way over the top, enough. And it recently, as I was scrolling through Netflix, I believe it was Netflix, because I have watched a lot of series and movies and things during this time. Anyway, and I saw a documentary about people who believe that the earth is flat. And I watched it, and I'm still here to say that I am not a flat earther. In fact, what I saw in the documentary that was that they did a couple experiments themselves to prove that the earth was flat, to validate their belief and their conviction. And the experiments disproved their theories. The experiments that they did disproved what their expectations were, that would prove that the earth was not round. However, what I found most fascinating was that despite the fact that their own experiments did not correlate with their expectation, they figured something was wrong with the data. And they decided that they had to continue to experiment, that this, although they had declared that this would prove things once and for all, when the information didn't correlate with their belief, they dismissed it. And I think that this is a really, really, really important thing to look at. Like, where do our beliefs reside? Uh, we have beliefs related to politics. We have beliefs related to religion. We have beliefs related to who we are, or who certain people are, or what our relationships are. We have beliefs about this virus. We have beliefs about everything. In fact, our whole experience of our lives is colored by our beliefs. And what the invitation is, and this is a huge challenge because it's actually a challenge to identity, but what the invitation is to Entertain your beliefs as theory or as possibility or as a working hypothesis rather than as truth. Because many of us who are engaging or enjoying programming on Enlightened World Network have a belief that we are spirit in physical form. And that that's my belief, okay? So if that's true, maybe this physical form is much more mutable than we believe it to be. And what I want to posit is that perhaps our beliefs, rather than being expansive, although they do give us a means through which we can interact with the world, rather than being expansive, perhaps they serve to limit our experience. In fact, I think we can safely say that our beliefs tend to constrain our experience at the very least, because we say this is true and this isn't true. So we're eliminating the thing that isn't true. And I recognize that that's essential to functioning. And particularly in the time of this epidemic, I think it's so important for us to be questioning the beliefs, particularly because we are being educated to fear right now, and we are being educated to certain models of care and response to this epidemic that may or may not be true. And I'm saying that because I'm aware of lots of differing perspectives. In fact, we've been exposed in the US, we've been exposed to a number of differing perspectives, even from the authorities, where initially we were told that we shouldn't wear a mask, that wearing a mask would propagate or emphasize or emphasize our risk by having us rebreathing the droplets that might be infected. We could reinfect ourselves. Now we're being told to wear masks. So there's changing information around what we're learning. And the other thing that I am very that I have some trepidation about is the possibility and what I imagine to be the likelihood that at some point we're going to be confronted with the pressure for forced vaccination. And I because that would be a cure, potential theoretically that would be a cure, and it would be creating global safety, right? So what I notice about the whole vaccine issue is that we've sort of divided ourselves into camps of vaxxers and anti-vaxxers, and the thing is that what we need to do is inform ourselves. What we need to do is to learn about what this is, not to take someone else's determination and assume that that's the truth, because there is a lot of censorship happening of alternative views, even alternative views that are backed by science. I'm not talking about just off the cuff, uninformed opinion. I'm talking about science-based determinations. It's really important for us to be able to examine our beliefs and what we're receiving from others as our belief, and question that. Let me just check and see. Jennifer says, I recently came to the realization that the belief system I was taught by my grandmother, who I adored, isn't what I believe in, and it's limited my experiences. I'm currently expanding past this belief system into what I truly am. I am I am that I am. Jennifer, that is so powerful and really quite remarkable that you had the opportunity to notice the belief systems that you were subject to. Because for so many of us, it's like a fish in water. It's just how it is. We don't question it because that's what we were always uh, brought up in. That's how we were always indoctrinated, and we knew nothing different. So Jennifer says knowledge is powerful. It certainly is. It certainly is. And the thing about knowledge is, as we're discovering in this conversation about belief, knowledge is not absolute. And we base our beliefs on things that we've been indoctrinated to that we don't even think to question. And then we also base our beliefs on our experience. So this is an interesting dynamic, because what happens with belief is you have a belief, and then you have experiences. Because you have the belief, you look and sort for experiences that validate the belief, just like in that flat earth documentary. You look for experiences that validate the belief, and if they conflict with the belief, you may just inadvertently dismiss the evidence, like in the flat earth movie and like with my dad with the muscle testing. So there's the thing about belief that makes it so deeply entrenched in one respect is the fact that we identify ourselves, we become identified with our beliefs. In other words, our beliefs become become fundamental to our identities. And therefore, we end up fixing ourselves into a limit of identity by associating our identity with our beliefs. So it's kind of this very complex web that just gets deeper and deeper as we start questioning and evaluating. But what the encouragement is to be, first of all, more flexible in our identity, and to have our identity be a process rather than a thing. A process meaning a process of discovery. Instead of I am, it's like I am currently believing this, or I am currently entertaining these beliefs, or I am exploring. To be identifying with the process. I am, who am I am growing. Who am I am exploring. uh, who am I am discovering. To be in the process of identity, which is being in the process of life. Jennifer says, very deep statement. Thank you, Jennifer. I think that this is where we want to move as a culture, as a global family, is to move into being the process of living and life expressing itself. And how we do that is by being, and being in experience, in the experience of life and discovery and growth and all the experiences that life presents us with. So, belief is what happens if we entertain belief not as truth, but belief as working hypothesis. And then that gives us the capacity to experience and explore things that we might not otherwise have imagined, that can open up whole new worlds to us. And yeah, it's challenging, and it can be really threatening. For instance, my dad was exceedingly threatened by the thought that I could talk to his body. So it's really, really interesting uh, and courageous challenge that I'm issuing to you. I mean, it would take courage for you to receive the challenge, to entertain the thought the thought of being a process rather than a thing. And enlightened world, I'm guessing this is Dido. I am as a verb instead of a noun. Yes, yes, I love it. That's beautiful. You summarize the whole thing. This is great. So yes, I am rather than being a noun, I am as a verb. And that what that leaves room for is I am emerging and emergent. It's Dido. So that was a beautiful, Dido. Of course it's you. So deeply insightful. That's beautiful. So, yes, we get to be emergent. We get to be emergent as we become life in process. And that creates a whole new realm of capability, possibility, and capacity. So, with that, this is Friday, so I am going to wish you a wonderful weekend. Explore being process, explore being open to the hypotheses of your beliefs and use them as tools rather than definitions of who you are, and see what opens up. I would so love to have uh, more conversation about this with you. It's such a stimulating topic for me. So with and I hope it is for you too. With great love, great compassion, um, I am so appreciative that for you joining me, and I'm here on Enlightened World Network at 9 a.m. on weekdays. This is the Core Connection. Please check out the awesome programming on Enlightened World Network. There's always great things happening over the weekend for enrichment and centering and connecting. So join us for that. And Dido says, thank you so much, Mira. Wonderful as ever. As are you, Dido. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you guys for engaging with me this morning. It's so much richer when I get to have dialogue back and forth with you. So please like and share this. And I mean, if you're getting value from it, please share it so that we can build the conversation. And lots of love, lots of light. Have a wonderful weekend.